Hello and welcome to this video. This is the second video in the series of videos for UTAPWeLS crash course. And it's the first video where we're going to have an exercise. The way this is going to work is first I'm going to go over some protocol or some of the modules that we're using. And then there's going to be an exercise in a link in the, that you can access through the link in the description. And you can use that to see if you to practice what I'm showing you and to make sure that you really understand what you're doing and hopefully ask some questions afterwards and via email or whatever way you prefer. So this is what UTAPWeLS looks like once you open it. Suppose you have an LAS file, you can just simply drag it and dropping there. It's going to ask you if you want a new well, you say yes. You can do this with multiple files. It's going to show you all the data that was in that LAS. You can just say import. This is one of the simpler cases. You can modify the depth that you're interested in or other things. Then you're going to see that you can start exploring the data tree, and you're going to see that there are some log sets, and those log sets are going to have some information here, and you can see what information you get from them. Then you can double click here in the well, and that's going to open the well interpreter. This is what we call the well interpreter. This is where we're going to be spending most of the time. And this is exactly what I want you to see. This is how you visualize data. This is a video about visualizing data. You double click anywhere here and you get what we call the track editor. Alternatively, down here in the bottom, you have this icon that if you click it is going to do the exact same thing. Here in the top, you decide which track you're going to be working with. They always have a number and they also have a title. So for example, this one, I can change it to gamma ray or GR. And now, well, instead of visualizing Earth model, I can change this to LAS. I have LAS, mnemonics, and Earth model. After you run simulations, you're also going to have the option of type and simulations. And the source of the plot that you're seeing is going to be here in the left of the control. This is a line plot or a log plot, as we call them. We can do this. We could select, for example, mnemonic and then just select gamma ray. That's the quickest way of working with this. And the mnemonics are very easy to understand. If you click in this button, you're going to get the definition of what mnemonics are. These are all the mnemonics that we have. Each mnemonic has a set of curves associated to it. You can always add more just by clicking here in the plus. Then it tells you what are the units, what are the descriptions that you're going to have. Display units, the limits, these are the preferred limits. So it's always going to have 0 to 150 whenever you choose that mnemonic, or a curve that is within the mnemonics, which is pretty useful because alternatively, instead of selecting it by mnemonic, I'm going to show you how you select it by LAS, and it would still get the color and get the limits that you need. Then you may have these for field logs, simulated logs, or Earth model, and you can have them with slightly different styles. In general, we keep the simulated logs as dashed, but that's just a statics decision. So instead of that, I could have gone LAS and then select explicitly the gamma ray curve, and it still picks up the right color and picks up the right limits. This is one of the types of curves that we have, that log plot. You can add another track just by clicking here. And then here I'm going to add, for example, I can add, let's say, density porosity. And the limits, I have it, I modified the mnemonics on mine so that they're not exactly what you would expect, but you get some limits there. So I have neutron density porosity, and let me add also, I can also add neutron porosity. This one is neutron porosity in this case, and I can have them with the same limits. This is fine. And then the limits in this case that make things interesting are the whole interval is just very big. So here in the right, we have the reference track where you right click on it and you have 3 different limits that you can modify. The reference track limits, which are the limits for this track only. The modeling limits, which is just the area that you're going to be interested in doing simulations or calculations or whatever you're going to be doing. And then the viewing limits, which is just zooming in or what you need to do or whatever down there. So in this case, I know the limits are 9200. sorry, 9,200 to 9,500 feet. And I just do that. And now the modeling limits are in that area that is interesting. I can also make the viewing limits. I can set them to that manually, but I'm gonna use the icons that we have here in the bottom. I can zoom in with this. I can select pan, zoom in, zoom out. Zoom in, you can also drag and drop, and it just zooms into the area that you're dragging and dropping. You can also double click, and when you double click, it goes to the modeling limits, giving a little margin there just to make sure that you see everything that you want to see. Zoom out does exactly what you would imagine, just goes out. You can also scroll with the roll in your mouse, and pan just does exactly that. And anytime you have any one of these, you can open the track editor and so on. So I'm just going to zoom in the area that we're interested in, and then we're going to play a little more with other plots. I'm going to add another track. Notice you can duplicate a track. So just in case, if I wanted to duplicate exactly the same with the two porosities, I could do that. In this case, I'm not interested. So I'm going to do a different one that is going to have the resistivity curves. So I'm going to do it by mnemonics, and I can do, notice we have RS for shallow, we have RM, and notice that it gives you not RM or RS, it gives you exactly the name of the curve that you have, because in some cases, like in resistivity, you may have, in this case, you may have different curves that you need to make sure that the ones you're looking at are exactly the ones you need. You have AF or AT, which one do you want? In this case, it's picking up AF and AT, just because the way the mnemonics are. So we're gonna keep it this way, but maybe instead of AF, you want it AT. So we can do that. We can do it two different ways. You can just either explicitly select LAS and make it AT, 8090. And now it's all of them are T, so it's a little better. We could have also done it by selecting the mnemonic options and making sure that AT is higher here. If you see that in RD, we have a lot of curves, and if we just wanted to make sure that one of them is picked up before the other, we can just change the order here. You can just type the ranking that you want, and that will do it. Anyway, so now that we're here, something else that you can do is, for example, if you decide that 200 is not enough, you want it to be 300 because it's standard in your company or whatever. You want to make it 0.3 to 300. These are the limits. You want to make sure it's in all the curves because they all have the same units. You just click in this button and it'll propagate those limits. You can change the name that is displayed up here. You can change the units. You can change the scale, the style, the width. All these are cosmetic options that you have there, specific to each of the curves. You can customize it whichever way you want. Okay, now I'm going to go back to, and also you can give it a title. For example, this one, I'm going to call resistivity. And now in the top, I got that name. Now I'm going to go to the porosities. And in here, I'm going to add another type of plot. This one is the shade plot. I just click there and it makes just gives yellow or whichever color you want. You can just select whichever color you want to go in between the curves. You can select which one's to the left, which one's to the right. You can have another color for the opposite crossing. In this case, we're gonna stay with this, and let's stay with yellow. We can make it green as most standard for gas, and ignore this other one. And then we can start seeing some features here. You can see some invasion happen here because of resistivity. We can see some areas where we can suspect there might be gas. And you can see some in the gamma ray, you can see the areas that have probably more sandy, probably more shaly areas. Okay, so those are the two basic plots. There's a third one that is actually very commonly used. Here in depth, we have another type of curve, this one, which is the third one. If it wasn't clear, all these buttons up here are buttons that you use to add plots to each of the tracks. So I'm going to add another one. This is one of them, but I'm going to add just another track just to start from scratch. Then I'm going to plot another numeric plot. We call them numeric. And you can have whatever you want. In this case, what we have here is the depth by MD. You can have the depth by TVD. And you can have any of the Earth model properties, or you could have the same things that you have. You can have the resistivity or whatever you want to see as numeric. You can have it there. If you have core data, you can see it this way. There, anything you want to see, it's an option. Okay. Now with that, I'm gonna show you also a couple of things that you can do here. You can, if you, for example, let's say that you like having gamma ray prosthesis resistivity and then another curve, you can always save it. Here, it's there. The concept that I'm talking about is called templates. In the top right, you have a number of templates. Some of them are predefined that are going to come with UTAPWeLS. Some of them I've defined myself. And you have a couple of options here to control them. The first one is to save the current template in the user preferences. You can add a new template. You can save the current template as a new template for this well. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use the blue arrow. And then it's going to give me an option. And I'm going to say just video. And now it's saved. And now anytime I open a new well, I can have it there. Sorry, right now it's just in this well. So now I have this other template. I could go to triple combo, for example, and it's going to show what is the standard triple combo, gamma ray resistivity neutron. And then I can go to video and it goes back to where we have the shade and all the other things that we had. Now, if I want to use it permanently in other wells, I have to click here in the black one that updates it in the user settings, which is a file that stays in your computer. Now here, to make everything a little more clear, the one that has the 3 buttons is the bigger control. It shows you all the templates that you have. It shows you whether the template's currently saved in user preferences or not, if you want to update it, and if you want to revert. So for example, if I say, well, actually, I want another plot here that's going to be LAS, and that looks good. And then I say, well, actually, I don't like that. I want to go back to where I was. You can just revert, and it's going to go back to where you were. And so that's the concept of templates, which can be very useful. Also, in cosmetic stuff, you have down here, I showed you how to open the track editor, which is what you use to control each of the tracks individually. But we have another button next to it, which is the track display settings, which controls how everything looks. So for example, so you can explore all these with more detail, but it's modifying things. For example, if I want to make the plot names a little bigger, I can just select a different value there and it does that. I'm just going to go back to where I was, but some companies like changing these colors to whatever their company might be. This is like an Aggie style, God forbid, right? But you can do it. We like them. You can change it to whichever color you want. And many other options also to look at it whichever way you want. Also, down here, there's another few controls. This is to open a horizontal track display. We're going to have a separate video for that. This one is to show values on the cursor. So if I turn it on, I can see the values on each of the curves explicitly. Sometimes it gets in the way, so you can turn it off. And if you turn it off, you can also see the values down here. Look how, when I'm moving, you can see the values of the curves right there. We also have, these buttons help you manipulate the Earth model, so I'm not going to go with them. But up here, just visualization, explicitly visualization, you have a couple that are interesting. You have fit to screen, which people love using it just to make sure all the tracks are within the limits that you want. or I mean, that are strictly in the width that you have. So if I make my UTAPWeLS skinnier, and then I say, well, this is the space I want, you just click there and everything is going to be that size. Um, and then another one that might be even more interesting, you have the histogram mode, which you can, I'm going to click on it, and it notice the mouse changes, and I can just select an area and it's going to make a histogram for each of the 80, for each of the curves within that track. You can play with this. It's fairly intuitive. Change the number of bins, change the colors if you just want to see one or the other, and so on. And then probably more interestingly, you have cross plot mode, which is very similar. You just select the area where you want to make the cross plot. In this case, I'm just selecting the whole thing. You can see the resistivities, and you can see how 8010 and 8010, the histogram, and then 8010 versus 8030, how that cross plot looks like. And you can do that for any of them. You can always change the source here for RS instead of, if you wanted to see it linear for whatever reason, you could do that. I don't know that you would, but you could. The point is just to show you that you can control the limits, you can control the scale, the units that you're going to use. And the last thing that I want to show you here is these orange icons that you see here and that you see down here. They refer to a concept in UTAPWeLS that we call MD selection, so measured depth selection. So just points that are being selected. And you can select them if you use the hand. You just, whatever you click is going to select some points, and it's going to show you here where those points are. Alternatively, you can draw a polygon. I'm going to draw a polygon that selects these points that look a little out, and it's going to show me that, well, turns them into that orange color, and it shows me that they are here and whatever they might mean. You can do it with whichever cross plot that you have. You can always do that. You can always clear it. You can always start again. So I'm going to start again just to show you one last thing. I'm going to keep that because I'm going to say that this is an interesting area, and it is. We have the gas, we have the resistivity, so there was some invasion, there's some gas. It's an interesting area. And lastly, here, I'm going to open the track display, and you can see that we have the plot that we had, and then we have an MD selections plot. You can remove it, and you can add it back here. Now, something else that is interesting is that once you have it here, you can always drag the headers of any of the plots, and they will just show. If you drag them using the right click, instead of dragging them, you're going to duplicate them. So let's say that you wanted to see the MD selections everywhere, you just move them everywhere, and you can see that now it's showing everywhere. That's another cool thing you can do. Of course, something else you can do is if you click on the top of any of them and any of the tracks and you move it, you can reorganize them. You can set a different order if you think you want to see them differently. Here also, and it does matter which one is on top. The color on top is going to show also on top there. So if we zoom in some of these parts where you have some overlap, it would make a little more difference which one is on top. And I think that's all. I think that's all that I wanted to show you. There's an exercise that if you're interested in getting more experience with how you visualize data and how you load data, you should go ahead and work with it. And that's it. I'll see you in the next exercise.